Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the stars through the main viewport. The ship had been traveling for 3 months through the Kepler 442 system, mapping new worlds and searching for signs of life. The crew of 42 had grown used to the routine of exploration, but today felt different. "Captain, we have something on long-range sensors," said Communications Officer Lisa Park from her station. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and concern that made Morrison turn around immediately. "What kind of something?" Morrison asked as he walked over to her console. The screen showed a blip moving through space at incredible speed, far faster than any human ship could travel. "It's big, sir. Maybe twice the size of our ship, and it's heading straight for us," Lisa reported while adjusting the sensor array to get a better reading. "Navigation officer," Sam Rodriguez looked up from his charts. "Captain, at their current speed, they'll reach us in about 2 hours. Should we change course?" Morrison thought for a moment. This was exactly what they had hoped for during their deep space mission, contact with alien life. But first contact protocols required careful consideration. "No, maintain course." Lisa tried to establish communication. "Use the universal greeting sequences we practiced." The next hour passed slowly as Lisa sent various mathematical and musical patterns into space, hoping the approaching ship would recognize them as attempts at peaceful communication. Finally, her console lit up with an incoming transmission. "Captain, they're responding," Lisa said with barely contained excitement. "The signal is complex, but the computer is working on translation." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, thin alien figure with dark blue skin and 4 arms. Its head was elongated, with large yellow eyes that seemed to study the humans with interest. When it spoke, the translation system converted its words into English. "I am War Prime Kethver of the Veltar hunting fleet. Your species is unknown to us, but your ship moves through our territory. State your purpose, small creatures." Morrison stepped forward and activated the communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship with other intelligent species. We didn't know this was your territory." The alien's expression changed slightly, and Morrison thought he saw something like amusement in those yellow eyes. "Peace and friendship. How refreshing. Tell me, Captain Morrison, does your species have warriors? Do you fight wars?" "We have had conflicts in our history," Morrison replied carefully, "but we prefer to solve problems through discussion and cooperation when possible." War Prime Kethver made a sound that the translation system interpreted as laughter. "Fascinating. Your ship carries weapons, I can sense them. Yet you speak of peace. My scouts have been studying your vessel for the past hour. Your technology is primitive by our standards, but your ship design shows knowledge of combat." Chief Engineer Katie Bell whispered to Morrison from her position near the engineering console. "Captain, their ship is scanning us with some kind of energy beam. It's not harmful, but they're learning everything about our systems." Morrison nodded but kept his attention on the alien leader. "We carry weapons for defense only. Exploration can be dangerous, and we must protect our crew." "Defense," Kethver repeated, and his 4 arms moved in what might have been a gesture of dismissal. "Tell me about your wars, Captain. What is the greatest battle your species has fought?" Dr. Alex Chun, the ship's xenobiologist, had been studying the alien's behavior and spoke quietly to Morrison. "Captain, I think he's testing us somehow. His body language suggests he's evaluating our responses." Morrison considered how to answer. The alien seemed genuinely curious about human military history. "We have fought many wars throughout our history. Some lasted for years, involving millions of people. We learned that war brings great suffering, which is why we now seek peaceful solutions." "Millions," Kethver said, his eyes widening slightly. "And these wars lasted years? How wonderfully inefficient. The Veltar have been the dominant hunters in this region of space for 1,000 years. We take what we want when we want it. Other species either submit or are eliminated quickly." "We don't seek conflict with your people," Morrison said firmly. "We can leave your territory immediately if our presence offends you." The alien leader was quiet for a long moment, his forearms folding across his chest. Your species intrigues me, Captain Morrison. You have the capability for war, yet you choose to explore rather than conquer. This is either wisdom or weakness. I wish to determine which. What do you propose? Morrison asked, though he was beginning to suspect he wouldn't like the answer. The Veltar have an ancient tradition called the Great Hunt. When we encounter a species that might provide interesting sport, we offer them a choice. They can submit to our rule immediately, or they can participate in the hunt. And what does this hunt involve? Morrison asked, though his military training was already telling him the answer. Simple. You are given a head start to flee anywhere in the galaxy. Then we pursue you. If you can evade us for one full cycle of our homeworld's rotation around its star, roughly equivalent to what you call a year, then you and your people will be granted permanent safe passage through our territory. Sam Rodriguez had been calculating something at his station and looked up with concern. Captain, one cycle of their world. That's about 14 Earth months based on their stellar cartography data. And if we're caught before then, Morrison asked, then you and your crew will become part of our trophy collection. Your ship will be displayed in our victory halls, and your species will be marked as conquered prey. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Morrison looked around at his crew, 42 people who had volunteered for this mission because they believed in humanity's future among the stars. They all watched him, waiting for his decision. If we refuse both options, Morrison asked, then we destroy your ship immediately and mark your species as hostile. When we encounter other human vessels, we will attack without warning. Lisa Park had been monitoring other communication channels and spoke up. Captain, I'm detecting at least 6 other ships in the area. They're maintaining distance, but they're definitely watching us. Morrison realized they were surrounded. The Veltar had been planning this encounter from the moment they detected the horizon. How long do we have to decide? You have until my ship's chronometer reaches the next cycle marker. In your time measurement, that would be approximately 1 hour. The screen went dark, leaving the human crew alone with their thoughts. Morrison looked around the bridge at his people. They were scared, but he could see determination in their eyes as well. Options? Morrison asked. We could try to fight, suggested Security Chief Pete Walsh. Our weapons might surprise them. Against 7 ships with superior technology, Katie Bell shook her head. We might damage one of them before they destroyed us. Dr. Chun had been thinking about the aliens' behavior. Captain, I think they're offering us the hunt because they're confident they'll win. This is entertainment for them, not a real challenge. Morrison nodded slowly. So they expect us to run in panic, making mistakes while they track us down at their leisure? That's my assessment, Chun agreed. Then we accept the hunt, Morrison decided. But we're not going to play by their rules. The hour passed quickly, as the crew prepared for what was to come. When War Prime Kethver's image appeared on the screen again, Morrison was ready. We accept the Great Hunt, Morrison announced. The alien leader's expression showed satisfaction. Excellent. You have 48 hours to flee as far as you can, then we begin tracking you. May your primitive instincts serve you well, Captain Morrison? As the alien ship moved away to what Morrison assumed was a safe distance, he turned to his crew. They think we're prey. They're about to learn that humans don't stay prey for long. The horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel the moment their 48-hour head start began. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak past on the main screen. To anyone observing, it would look like the human ship was running in complete panic, desperately trying to put distance between themselves and their hunters. Course laid in for the Proxima system, reported Navigation Officer Sam Rodriguez. We should arrive in 6 hours if we maintain current speed. Morrison nodded, but his mind was already working on the bigger picture. Katie, how are our engine modifications coming along? Chief Engineer Katie Bell looked up from her tablet where she had been reviewing technical specifications. I've started installing the stealth modifications we discussed. The sensor dampening field should be ready in 3 days. The false signature generators will take longer. Good, Lisa, any word from our pursuers? Communications Officer Lisa Park shook her head. Nothing yet, Captain. They're maintaining communication silence, but I've been monitoring background radiation patterns. I think they're following us, but staying at maximum sensor range. Dr. Alex Chen had been studying the data they collected about the Veltar during their brief encounter. Captain, I've been analyzing their ship design and behavior patterns. They're definitely hunters, but they seem to prefer individual action over group coordination. Meaning what exactly? Morrison asked. They're like big cats from Earth, powerful, skilled, but they hunt alone or in very small groups. They don't seem to have the same pack mentality that humans developed. Morrison found this information very interesting. So they're not used to prey that coordinates its actions. That's my theory, Chun agreed. Their entire psychology seems built around the idea of superior individuals dominating weaker ones. The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Proxima system. Sam Rodriguez had chosen their arrival point carefully, near a dense asteroid field. That would provide cover and confusion for their sensors. Beginning evasive maneuvers, Sam announced as he guided the ship between the floating rocks. If they're tracking us, this should slow them down. Morrison stood and walked to the science station where Dr. Chun was working. Alex, I need you to start a detailed analysis of everything we learned about the Veltar. I want to know how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, how they make mistakes. Already on it, Captain. I've been reviewing the conversation with their leader. He seemed genuinely surprised by some of our responses, such as, when you mentioned wars lasting years and involving millions of people, he called it inefficient. I think the Veltar are used to quick, decisive victories. They might not have experience with prolonged conflicts. Morrison smiled slightly. Then we're going to give them an education. Over the next several days, the horizon moved through 3 different star systems, always staying just ahead of their pursuers. To the Veltar, it must have looked like desperate flight. The human ship took dangerous shortcuts through unstable regions of space, used risky jump calculations that could have destroyed them, and generally appeared to be making the kind of mistakes that panicked prey would make in reality. Every move was carefully calculated. Sam Rodriguez had been plotting their course not just for speed, but for strategic advantage. Each system they passed through was mapped and analyzed. They left behind sensor probes disguised as damaged ship components, creating a network of eyes and ears that would track their hunters. Captain, our modifications are complete, Katie Bell reported during their 4th day of flight. We can now generate false energy signatures, create fake debris trails, and operate in complete stealth mode for up to 6 hours at a time. Excellent work, Katie. How long before we can start implementing Phase 2? Give me another week to install the weapon modifications, and we'll be ready. Morrison had been studying human military history during their flight, looking for strategies that might work against technologically superior opponents. The answer came from an unexpected source, the writings of an ancient Chinese general named Sun Tzu, who had written about the art of war over 2,000 years ago. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak, Morrison quoted to his senior staff during their daily briefing. We're going to make them think we're getting more desperate while we're actually getting stronger. How do we do that? Asked Security Chief Pete Walsh. We start making more obvious mistakes. We leave behind more debris, we transmit more distress signals, and we generally act like a crew that's falling apart under pressure. Lisa Park had been monitoring Veltar communications and had discovered something important. Captain, I've been analyzing their pursuit patterns. They're not just following us, they're studying us. They want to understand human behavior before they close the trap, which means they're learning from our actions, Morrison realized. Good, let's give them the wrong lessons. The Horizon's flight through the galaxy continued for 2 more weeks. By this time, the Veltar had identified several patterns in human behavior. The humans seemed to panic when cornered, they made poor decisions under pressure, and they were gradually wearing down both physically and mentally. War Prime Kethver was pleased with the progress of the hunt. His prey was behaving exactly as expected, showing brief moments of cleverness followed by increasingly desperate mistakes. The humans had managed to stay ahead of his ships for longer than most species, but the outcome was inevitable. What the Veltar didn't realize was that every mistake had been planned in advance. The distress signals they intercepted were actually coded messages being sent to other human ships, warning them about the Veltar threat. The debris trails they followed contained hidden sensor devices that mapped their ship configurations and energy signatures. "Captain, we're approaching the Epsilon Eridani system," Sam Rodriguez reported. "This is where you wanted to spring the trap." Morrison studied the tactical display showing the gas giant and its 17 moons. "Perfect. Katie, are all our modifications ready? All weapon systems are installed and tested. The stealth generators are at full capacity. We're as ready as we'll ever be." "Alex, what's your assessment of Veltar's psychology at this point?" Dr. Chun looked up from his analysis. "They're confident, maybe overconfident. They've been playing with us for weeks, and they think they understand how we react to pressure. They're expecting us to make a final, desperate stand." "Lisa, any change in their communication patterns?" "They're getting more relaxed, Captain. Less tactical chatter, more casual conversation. I think they're starting to see this as a foregone conclusion." Morrison nodded. "Then it's time to show them what humans are really capable of." "Sam, take us into the system? Make it look like we're having engine trouble." "Aye, Captain." "Beginning approach to the gas giant. I'll make our engine fluctuations look like a critical failure." As the horizon limped toward the massive planet, its crew prepared for what would either be their greatest victory or their final battle. Behind them, the Veltar ships closed in for what they believed would be an easy kill. Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as enemy ships moved into position around the gas giant. They're about to learn the difference between hunting animals and hunting humans. The trap was set. 3 weeks of apparent flight and panic had been leading to this moment. The Veltar thought they were closing in on exhausted prey, but they were actually walking into a carefully prepared ambush designed by a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. The hunt was about to become a battle, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of when pushed to their limits. The horizon drifted toward the gas giant with sparks flying from its engine ports and emergency lights flashing across its hull. To the Veltar ships closing in from multiple directions, it looked like the human vessel was finally breaking down after weeks of desperate flight. "Engine failure confirmed," Sam Rodriguez announced loudly enough for any listening devices to pick up his voice. "We're losing power to all primary systems." Captain Jake Morrison played his part perfectly, showing the kind of panic that the Veltar would expect from cornered prey. "Can you get us back online?" "I'm trying, Captain, but the engine core is overheating. We might have to abandon ship." Chief Engineer Katie Bell was actually working at a different console, her hands flying over controls that were hidden from any external sensors. The engine failure was completely fake, created by a combination of pyrotechnics and electromagnetic pulse generators that made it look convincingly real. "Captain, I'm reading 7 Veltar ships moving into attack formation," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They're surrounding us." Morrison looked at the tactical display that showed their enemies moving into position around the gas giant. The Veltar had done exactly what he hoped they would do. They had split their forces to make sure the humans couldn't escape in any direction. "War Prime Kethver is hailing us," Lisa announced. "Put him on screen," Morrison ordered. The alien leader appeared on the main viewer, his forearms spread wide in what might have been a gesture of triumph. "Captain Morrison, your flight ends here. You have provided better sport than most prey, but the hunt is finished." "We're not going down without a fight," Morrison replied, letting his voice carry the right amount of defiance mixed with desperation. "Of course not, that would make the victory too easy. But your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships, and your vessel is clearly dying. Surrender now, and your crew will be preserved as trophies rather than being killed in battle." Morrison pretended to consider this offer while his crew continued their preparations. Give me 5 minutes to discuss this with my officers. Very well. 5 minutes. Then we begin our final approach. The screen went dark and Morrison immediately activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Execute Plan Omega in 3 minutes. Dr. Alex Chun had been monitoring the Veltar ships with their modified sensors. Captain, they're moving into standard hunting formation. Each ship is taking a different approach angle, but they're not coordinating their movements. They're still thinking like individual hunters. Perfect. That's exactly what we were counting on. Security Chief Pete Walsh had been preparing the ship's new weapon systems. All batteries are charged and ready, Captain. The surprise packages are loaded and targeted. Katie, how are we doing on the stealth modifications? All systems are green. Once we activate the cloak, we'll be invisible to their sensors for approximately 6 hours. Morrison looked around the bridge at his crew. 3 weeks ago, they had been explorers and scientists. Now they were about to become something the galaxy had never seen before, humans at war. Lisa, patch me through to all Veltar ships on an open channel. Channel open, Captain. Morrison stood and faced the main screen. War Prime Kethfer, this is Captain Morrison. You asked me earlier why we don't just run. I'm about to show you. He made a cutting gesture across his throat, and Lisa immediately cut the transmission. At the same time, Katie Bell activated the stealth systems, and the horizon vanished from all sensors. The Veltar ships continued their approach toward where the human vessel had been, but their scanning equipment showed empty space. War Prime. Kethfer's voice could be heard over the communication channels, demanding to know what had happened to their prey. Phase 1 complete, Morrison announced. Sam, take us around the gas giant's north pole. Use the magnetic field to mask our movement. The horizon moves silently through space, using the planet's natural electromagnetic interference to hide their approach. The Veltar ships were still searching the area where they had last seen the human vessel, completely unaware that their prey had become the hunter. First target acquired, Pete Walsh reported. Veltar ship designated Alpha 1 is isolated from the others. Fire when ready. The Horizon's modified weapon systems opened fire with devastating precision. The Veltar had been expecting primitive human technology, but Katie Bell had spent 3 weeks upgrading their systems with salvaged components and completely new design concepts. The first enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light before its crew even knew they were under attack. The other Veltar vessels immediately began searching for the source of the attack, but the humans had already moved to their next position. Target Alpha 2 is in range, Pete announced. Fire. The second ship lasted slightly longer, managing to activate its shields before the human weapons tore through its hull. The Veltar were beginning to realize that something had gone terribly wrong with their hunt. War Prime. Kethfer's voice filled the communication channels with orders and demands for information. All ships, report your status. Where are the humans? They're right here, Morrison said, opening a channel to the Veltar leader. And we're not running anymore. The third enemy ship tried to flee, but Sam Rodriguez had anticipated this move. The Horizon cut off its escape route, and Pete Walsh's weapons reduced it to burning wreckage within seconds. This is impossible. Kethfer's voice carried a note of genuine confusion. Your ship was dying. Your technology is primitive. You made 2 mistakes, Morrison replied calmly. First, you assumed we were actually trying to escape. Second, you hunted us individually instead of working together. The remaining 4 Veltar ships began trying to coordinate their movements, but it was too late. The humans had spent weeks studying their enemies' tactics and psychology. Every move the aliens made had been predicted and countered in advance. Captain, they're attempting to form a defensive formation, Dr. Chun reported. But their individual hunting instincts are fighting against group coordination. Morrison could see the confusion in the enemy formation. The Veltar were skilled individual fighters, but they had never learned to work as a unified force. Their pride and independence were now working against them. Take us in for the final approach, Morrison ordered. It's time to end this. The Horizon emerged from behind. one of the gas giant's moons, no longer hiding or pretending to be damaged. The ship's weapons were fully charged, its systems were operating at peak efficiency, and its crew was ready for victory. War Prime Kethver's ship tried to ram the human vessel in a desperate final attack, but Sam Rodriguez had been expecting. This move, the Horizon rolled gracefully out of the way, and Pete Walsh's weapons crippled the alien leader's engines. This is Captain Morrison to all remaining Veltar ships. You have 30 seconds to surrender, or you will be destroyed. The response was immediate. 2 of the remaining ships powered down their weapons and transmitted surrender codes. The 3rd ship tried to escape, but the Horizon's improved speed and maneuverability made pursuit unnecessary. A single precise shot disabled its engines, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. "Hunt's over," Morrison announced to his crew. "We won." The bridge erupted in cheers, but Morrison remained focused on the tactical display. "Lisa, open a channel to the Veltar leader." War Prime Kethver appeared on the screen, his forearms trembling with what might have been rage or fear. "How did you do this? Your species is supposed to be primitive prey." Morrison smiled grimly. "We're not prey, Kethver. We're humans. And you just learned the difference between hunting animals and hunting a species that has spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war." The alien leader stared at him in silence for a long moment. "You were never trying to escape." "No, we were studying you, learning your weaknesses, and preparing to eliminate the threat you represented. That's what humans do when we're threatened. We don't just survive, we make sure the threat never comes back." The battle was over, but Morrison knew the real war was just beginning. Word of this victory would spread throughout the galaxy, and every species would have to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. The hunt had become a lesson, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to challenge the human race. The wreckage of Veltar ships floated silently around the gas giant while Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Horizon, watching the tactical display. 3 enemy vessels had been completely destroyed, and 4 others sat powerless in space with their crews waiting to learn their fate. "Captain, we're receiving distress signals from the disabled ships," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They're requesting medical assistance for their wounded." Morrison looked at Dr. Alex Chun, who was already preparing to leave the bridge. "Alex, take a medical team and help their injured. But keep security escorts with you at all times." "Understood, Captain. I'll treat their wounds, but I'll also learn everything I can about their biology and psychology." Chief Engineer Katie Bell was analyzing the damaged Veltar vessels with their enhanced sensors. "Captain, their technology is more advanced than ours in some ways, but they built their ships for individual combat. They don't have the kind of redundant systems and damage control that we use." "Which explains why they went down so quickly once we started hitting them," Morrison observed. "They're not used to taking serious damage in battle." Security Chief Pete Walsh approached with a tablet containing preliminary intelligence reports. "Captain, we've been monitoring their communications since the battle ended. The Veltar have a complex social structure, but it's all based on individual achievement and hunting success. War Prime Kethver has lost tremendous status by losing." "To us," Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "That might work in our favor. Lisa, I want you to access their communication systems and prepare a message for broadcast throughout their territory." "What kind of message, Captain?" "The kind that explains to every species in the galaxy exactly what happened here today." Navigation. Officer Sam Rodriguez had been tracking other ships in the area. "Captain, I'm detecting at least 12 more Veltar vessels approaching our position. They should arrive in about 8 hours. Reinforcements?" "Most likely. They're coming from different directions, so this wasn't a planned response. They're probably individual hunters who heard about the battle and want to see what happened." Morrison considered this information carefully. "Then we need to send our message before they arrive. I want every species in known space to understand what they just witnessed." Over the next several hours, the crew of the Horizon worked to prepare their broadcast. Dr. Chun returned from treating the wounded Veltar with valuable information about their culture and mindset. "Captain, I've learned something important about how they think," Chun reported. The Veltar don't just see hunting as a way to gather food or resources. For them, it's the foundation of their entire society. Being defeated by prey is literally the worst thing that can happen to a Veltar warrior. How are they handling it? War Prime Kethver is in shock. He keeps asking his crew to explain how we could have been so much stronger than we appeared. The concept of strategic deception is completely foreign to their way of thinking. Morrison found this information fascinating. They're honest hunters who expect their prey to be equally honest about their capabilities. Exactly. The idea that we would pretend to be weak in order to study them and prepare a trap is beyond their understanding. Lisa Park had been working on the technical aspects of their galaxy-wide broadcast. Captain, I've tapped into the Veltar communication network. We can reach every major species in this region of space. Good. Pete, I want you to prepare a complete tactical analysis of the battle. Show them exactly how we defeated technologically superior opponents through planning and coordination. Already done, Captain. I've created a detailed breakdown of our strategy, including the 3-week preparation period and the psychology behind our apparent retreat. Morrison reviewed the material that his crew had prepared. The message would be simple but powerful. Humanity was not typical prey, and any species that tried to hunt them would face the same fate as the Veltar. Katie, how are our repairs coming along? All systems are back to full capacity, Captain. The battle damage was minimal, and I've made additional improvements to our weapons and defense systems using salvaged Veltar technology. Excellent. Sam, plot a course for the edge of Veltar territory. We'll broadcast our message as we leave. Course laid in, Captain. We can be at the border in 6 hours. As the horizon began to move away from the gas giant, Morrison activated the ship's communication system for the galaxy-wide broadcast. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon, speaking to all intelligent species within range of this transmission. The message was transmitted simultaneously in dozens of languages, using the universal translation protocols that had been developed over centuries of interstellar communication. 3 weeks ago, the Veltar hunting fleet challenged my ship to participate in what they called the Great Hunt. They believed that humans were primitive prey that could be easily tracked and captured. Morrison paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. They were wrong. The Veltar have spent 1,000 years dominating other species through individual strength and superior technology. But they made a critical error. They assumed that all species think the way they do. The broadcast continued with Pete Walsh's tactical analysis, showing exactly how the humans had used the Veltar's own assumptions against them. We didn't run because we were afraid. We ran because we were learning. Every star system we passed through, every mistake we appeared to make, every moment of apparent panic was part of a carefully planned strategy. Dr. Chun's psychological profile of the Veltar was included in the transmission, explaining how their individual hunting instincts had prevented them from working together effectively. The Veltar are skilled warriors, but they fight as individuals. Humans fight as a unified force, and that made all the difference. Lisa Park had prepared the technical specifications of the battle, showing how human ships could be modified to defeat superior alien technology through clever engineering and tactical innovation. We didn't win because we were stronger, we won because we were smarter. The message concluded with Morrison's personal statement to any species that might be considering humanity as potential prey. To any civilization listening to this broadcast, understand this clearly: humans do not accept the role of prey. We will not run indefinitely, and we will not submit to domination. If you threaten us, we will eliminate that threat permanently. Morrison looked directly into the camera as he delivered his final words. We don't want to fight. We prefer peace and cooperation. But if you force us to become your enemy, you will discover that humans have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. We don't just survive being hunted, we ensure it never happens again. The broadcast ended, and the Horizon continued its journey toward the edge of Veltar space. Behind them, the 12 approaching Veltar ships had stopped their advance and were undoubtedly trying to understand what had happened to their hunting fleet. Captain, we're receiving responses to our broadcast, Lisa reported. Multiple species are requesting more information about human capabilities and intentions. Any threats? Not yet. Most of them seem to be asking for clarification about our defensive policies. Morrison smiled grimly. Then the message is working. Let them know that humanity is willing to discuss peaceful relations with any species that approaches us honestly. Dr. Chun had been monitoring the reactions from various alien civilizations. Captain, I'm seeing a pattern in the responses. The predator species are showing new caution about human space, while the prey species are expressing interest in possible alliances. That's exactly what we hoped for, Morrison replied. We've changed the balance of power in this region of the galaxy. The horizon reached the edge of Veltar territory without further incident. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Morrison took one last look at the tactical display showing the space they were leaving behind. Set course for Earth, he ordered. It's time to go home and report what we've learned. The ship jumped to light speed, carrying with it the knowledge that humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The age of humans as unknown explorers was over, and the age of humans as a major galactic power had begun. 6 months after the battle at the gas giant, the horizon approached Earth's orbital defense stations with a hero's welcome waiting for them. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching his home planet grow larger on the main screen, knowing that everything had changed since they left. Captain, we're being hailed by Admiral Frank Cole at Earth Defense Command, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. He's requesting immediate debriefing upon arrival. Morrison nodded, expecting this response. The message they had broadcast throughout the galaxy had reached Earth weeks ago, and the government had been preparing for the consequences ever since. Tell the Admiral we'll be ready for full debriefing in 2 hours, Morrison replied. And, Lisa, prepare a complete record of everything that happened. They'll want to understand exactly how we defeated the Veltar. Navigation Officer Sam Rodriguez was guiding the ship toward its assigned docking bay. Captain, I'm seeing a lot more military ships than usual. Earth defense has definitely increased security. Can't blame them, Morrison observed. We've just announced to the galaxy that humans are not easy prey. Every species out there is probably reconsidering their plans for dealing with us. Chief Engineer Katie Bell had been monitoring communication channels during their approach. Captain, I'm picking up reports of increased alien activity throughout human space. Nothing hostile, but a lot more diplomatic contacts and trade requests. Dr. Alex Chun looked up from his analysis reports. That matches what we predicted. The predator species are being more cautious, while the prey species are showing interest in possible alliances. The horizon docked at the orbital station, and Morrison prepared to face the questions and challenges that would come with their newfound fame. As they walked through the station corridors, he could see the mixture of pride and concern on the faces of the personnel they passed. Admiral Frank Cole was waiting in the main briefing room, along with several other high-ranking officials from Earth's government and military. Morrison recognized some faces from his academy days, but others were clearly intelligence specialists and diplomats. Captain Morrison, Admiral Cole began without preamble, your message to the galaxy has created quite a stir. We've received over 200 communication requests from various alien species in the past month. What kinds of requests, Admiral? Everything from trade negotiations to military alliance proposals. But we've also detected increased surveillance of our outer colonies and shipping routes. Morrison had expected this response. They're testing. Yes, sir, seeing if our actions match our words, exactly. Which is why we need to understand exactly what happened out there. Your preliminary reports were impressive, but we need the full details. Morrison and his crew spent the next several hours explaining every aspect of their encounter with the Veltar. The strategic planning, the psychological analysis, the technical modifications, and the final battle were all examined in detail. The key point, Morrison explained, is that we didn't just defeat them militarily. We changed their entire understanding of what humans are capable of. They thought we were primitive prey, but we showed them that we're strategic thinkers who can adapt and overcome superior technology. Admiral Cole reviewed the tactical data with obvious satisfaction. Your approach was brilliant, Captain. But now we have to deal with the long-term consequences. How do we handle the fact that every species in the galaxy now knows we're dangerous? Exactly what we claim to be in our message, Morrison replied. We offer peaceful cooperation to those who approach us honestly, and we make it clear that we will defend ourselves against any threats. 3 weeks after Morrison's return to Earth, something unexpected happened. A Veltar ship approached the outer edge of human space, broadcasting diplomatic codes and requesting permission to meet with human representatives. Morrison was called back to active duty specifically to handle this contact. As he stood on the bridge of the New Earth defense ship Guardian, he watched the alien vessel approach under escort by 2 human warships. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Veltar ship, reported the communications officer. They're requesting permission to come aboard. Granted, but maintain full security protocols. The airlock opened to reveal War Prime Kethver himself, accompanied by 2 other Veltar warriors. The alien leader looked different somehow, less arrogant, more thoughtful. Captain Morrison, Kethver began, his forearms spread in what Morrison now recognized as a gesture of respect. I have come to speak with you about what happened in our last encounter. What about it? Morrison asked carefully. My people have spent months analyzing your tactics and strategies. We have come to understand that humans represent something we have never encountered before, a species that combines the cunning of a hunter with the cooperation of a pack. Morrison remained silent, allowing the alien leader to continue. The Veltar have been the dominant force in our region of space for 1,000 years, Kethver continued. But we have learned that dominance based on individual strength alone is not enough when facing an opponent that thinks strategically and works as a unified force. What are you proposing? An alliance. The Veltar have knowledge of hundreds of species throughout the galaxy along with advanced technology and combat experience. Humans have something we lack, the ability to plan long-term strategies and coordinate complex operations. Morrison considered this offer carefully. Why should we trust you? 6 months ago, you were hunting us for sport. Because you taught us something valuable, Kethver replied. You showed us that there are different ways to be strong. The Veltar respect strength above all else, and your victory demonstrated a kind of strength we had never seen before. The negotiations continued for several days, with diplomats and military strategists from both species working out the details of what would become known as the Human-Veltar Compact. The agreement established mutual defense arrangements and technology sharing, but more importantly, it represented a new model for interstellar relations. News of the alliance spread quickly throughout the galaxy, causing other species to reconsider their own diplomatic strategies. The combination of human strategic thinking and Veltar combat experience created a partnership that no single species wanted to challenge. Morrison returned to his exploration duties, but this time with a very different mission. Instead of searching for new worlds as unknown humans, he was now representing a major galactic power with allies and responsibilities. 6 months after the signing of the compact, Morrison received an urgent message while exploring the Outer Rim territories. A species called the Zephyrians had been making aggressive moves toward human colonies, apparently believing that humans were still vulnerable to traditional intimidation tactics. As Morrison's ship approached the Zephyrian fleet, he opened a communication channel to their leader. This is Captain Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. You are ordered to withdraw from human space immediately. The Zephyrian commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been amusement. And if we refuse, little human, will you run away like prey animals? Morrison smiled with the same calm confidence he had shown to the Veltar months earlier. We don't run from threats, we eliminate them. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Your reputation is exaggerated, the Zephyrian leader replied. We have studied your battles with the Veltar, and we believe you were simply lucky. Then, you haven't studied them carefully enough, Morrison said. But you're about to get a practical demonstration. The Zephyrian commander's expression changed as his sensors detected the approach of 12 Veltar ships, their weapons powered and ready for battle. The Alliance was working exactly as designed. You see, Morrison continued, humans don't just defeat our enemies. We turn them into allies. And now you face not just human strategic thinking, but also Veltar combat experience. The Zephyrian fleet withdrew without firing a shot, and word of the incident spread throughout the galaxy within days. The message was clear. Humanity had not just survived their first contact with galactic civilization. They had fundamentally changed the balance of power. Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the stars and thinking about how much had changed since that first encounter with the Veltar. They had asked him why he didn't run, and he had shown them that humans don't run from threats. They eliminate them permanently. The galaxy was learning that lesson, one species at a time. And for the first time since leaving Earth, Morrison felt truly confident about humanity's future among the stars. The hunt was over, but the real adventure was just beginning.